I think we all desire to live a life away from time commitments, time restraints, and most importantly, stress. The thing is, we won't ever be able to. There's always going to be something we have to attend or something we have to do, and it's just simply going to stress us out. I think that it's important to live day by day instead of worrying about what's in your future. And I have to admit, I'm not the best at doing that. I tend to worry about what's to come instead of just being like, Amelia, you're right now. You need to just do what you have to do right now instead of thinking about, oh my gosh, I have to do that in the future. No, you need to think about right now. This feeling slash thought of mine is only reinforced by The Waking by Theodore Rothike. The poem goes like this. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. I feel my fate and what I cannot fear. I learn by going where I have to go. We think by feeling, what is there to know? I hear my being dance from ear to ear. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. Of those so close behind me, which are you? God bless the ground. I shall walk softly there, and learn by going where I have to go. Light takes the tree, but who can tell us how? The lowly worm climbs up a winding stair. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. Great nature has another thing to do, to you and me, so take the lively air, and lovely, learn by going where to go. This shaking keeps me steady, I should know, what falls away is always and is near. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. I learn by going where I have to go. To begin his poem, he starts with a paradox, which is very confusing, at least it was for me, and that's I wake to sleep, and then it continues saying, and take my waking slow. When I first read that, I was like, what do you mean you're awake to sleep? Are you asleep your whole day? Do you not fully feel awake yet? But then after I analyzed it more and read into it more in depth, it makes perfect sense. I think that when you're asleep, you're in an almost you are unconscious. You're not fully aware of what's going on. And I think that's how most of us are forced to live our lives. We don't really know what we're going to expect. Sure, we might have a date, or we might have to go to work, but something can arise at work that we never know was going to happen. In line 2 of stanza 1, he then says, I feel my fate in which I cannot fear. Here he uses an alliteration with the words feel, fate, and fear, and I think it suggests that when he wakes up to sleep, he realizes, or he feels, that he cannot fear his future. He cannot fear fate because fate is inevitable. You are never going to be able to alter that. In the last line of stanza 1, he then says a line that he repeats quite often throughout the poem, I learn by going where I have to go. And honestly, this line struck me as very significant because it was one of the first lines that I really did understand what he was trying to say. And I think simply it's just saying, we learn by going throughout our daily lives. We learn by making mistakes. We learn by doing things wrong. We learn by thinking what we have to do or what we don't think we have to do. We learn by things that come that we don't favor. We learn by going where we go. Stanza 2 starts out like stanza 1 did, and that is by a paradox. He says, we think by feeling, and then he says, what is there to know? We think by feeling was my favorite sentence, word, line of the entire poem because I understood and I could relate to what it was meaning. We think by feeling, that makes perfect sense. The way we react and respond to situations is based on the feeling or the vibes that we get off the way something happens. If we don't like something, we become mad. If something hurts our feelings, we become sad. We think based on how we feel. I just can't explain it any more simply. We think because we feel. Same line, he then says, what is there to know? He asks his readers a rhetorical question, asking them, what is there to know? What do we need to understand about our lives to make it better? What do we have to do to live our lives day by day? In line 2, he literally states that he feels this thoughts that are going through his head by saying, I hear my being dance from ear to ear. He literally feels these vibes or these thoughts that he's expressing in this poem, from ear to ear. Last line of the poem, he says, I wake to sleep and take my waking slow, which is just restating the first line of the first stanza. And I thought it was kind of interesting that he put this line at the end of this stanza, because to me it kind of seemed like he was saying, for the end to come, you first have to begin, because he started that line at the beginning and now he's putting it at the end. And that reinforces the idea also of going through your day by day. You're never going to reach your end until you begin. To begin stanza 3, he addresses what it seems like someone either near and dear to him or the reader. I'm not really sure of the, like he says, of those so close beside me, which are you? Um, I'm not sure what he means by which are you. Like, which are you of what? Are you the person that goes by day, or do you live in your future? I'm not really sure what he's asking. I think it's open for interpretation, like whatever you think it could be. Line 2 is when it really starts to get like symbolical. He says, God bless the ground, I shall walk softly there. When he says God bless the ground, he specifically capitalizes the word ground, which is really important to me, I feel like, because um, it almost gives it like a religious aspect. Like this ground we walk on is holy. Like he feels that way. Me, myself, I'm not a very religious person, but I can respect that that's what he thinks. Like it could also be like it can be interpreted that he respects this ground, that God is nature, and so he must respect and walk softly on that, or that nature is important, so that we must respect it while we walk on it. To end stanza 3, he then says, like he already said in the first stanza, that he's going to learn by going where he has to go, which is just restating the idea that we are following, we are all on this path set by us, by whomever, whatever, and the way that we're going to learn and live throughout our lives is simply by living it, like going where we feel or think we have to go. Start off stanza 4, he talks about this light coming off this tree, which is kind of happening right here. And then he asks, like, who can tell us about this light off the tree, I assume. And he specifically capitalizes the T in tree, which is also kind of relates to him capitalizing the G in ground, and that it kind of, he went from the lowest point, like the ground, and now he's up at the tree, and it's like showing, I think it kind of meant like all in between, or this light coming off the tree, like there's going to be things coming in from life, like this light guiding us, and who's going to be able to tell us where to go, like should we follow this light, should we not? And I think that this rhetorical question he's asking, but who can tell us how, is rhetorical, because I think it's us that needs to tell us where to go. Like we need to be the ones to tell ourselves, like, let's follow this light from the tree. Also, it's important to note that he capitalized the T in tree, which could show significance to him, or like a religious aspect, that this could be the tree of life, like in the book of Genesis, suggesting that this tree to him is a very important thing, or like following our lives is a very important thing to do. To end this stanza, sort of, he talks about this lowly worm climbing up a big tree, and I really like this line as well too, because, well, first, like I just like imagining like a little worm climbing up the tree, but secondly, because I thought it was really like interesting or cool how he is talking about this little worm, like this little worm having to face such a big obstacle, like, and it can relate back to us, like how we're going to have to face so many obstacles in our life, but this little worm is trying to climb up this big tree and perhaps to go to his house or go eat some leaves. And I think it suggests to us that like we're all going to have to face things, like we don't, like there's not just one single person that has to face an issue, like we're always going to, like every single person is going to have to go through some trouble. He then ends that stanza with lines he had already used, saying he wakes to sleep. And then the next stanza, stanza 5, starts by mentioning nature. Like nature has another thing to do. Like I think that nature, like it has plans. Like all this rain that's been happening lately, like it's caused many floods, like it's ruined many of crops. And I think it's saying like nature has something planned for you. Nature knows what it's doing almost. Like something's gonna come out of that. In this stanza, this is one of the first times he like talks directly to the reader. Like before, he had mentioned possibly this lover, or like he might have been mentioned, like he might have been talking directly to the reader, but now he's really talking to us by saying to you and me, and he's saying, lovely, like you need to learn, like you need to go where you think you need to go, or where you don't really want to go, and that's when you are going to learn. Like you need to take the lively air and use it to learn. Last stanza of the poem like talks about the shaking keeping him steady, and I think the shaking is quite simply just difficulties in life that arise, like, and also living day by day. Like living day by day is going to be hard because it's not really something many of us do, but in the end it'll keep you stable, like it'll keep you steady, like it'll give you a better clarity of mind, it won't allow for you to stress as much. And then he also says, I should know. I thought this was quite interesting because it kind of made it seem like he was knowledgeable on this subject. Like maybe he's an elderly, or he just knows what's going on. Like he's suggesting to his readers, like, this is what you should do to live a better understood life. And then Another one of my favorite lines of the entire poem is that what falls away is always and is near. I think this is also kind of cool because it kind of could relate back to the tree, saying like when the leaves fall off a tree, like they're still on the ground around it, but they'll never go back up on the tree. They'll always be fallen leaves now. But also it can relate to the aspect of death. Like death is always near to all of us, but it's away, but it's near. Like death could come at any time, but you don't really know, and that's how you live your days as well. The reason I chose this poem is because, well, first off, I really didn't have any idea of what I was going to do for this project or any specific author, but I just wanted something to revolve around nature. The first time I read it, I didn't really understand anything it was saying, but then the more I read into it, like there's a lot of significance in this poem. Like it means a lot. Like his main message is just to learn by living. Like live and learn. That's basically all he's saying, and like I just really enjoyed it. Like it was easy to read, but it was, for me at least, very hard to understand. And the reason it kind of stuck in my soul, kind of, is because I am a person who really stresses about the future but doesn't stress about the present day. And I'm glad for that. Like, I worry about college, I worry about what's going to happen after college, but I don't really worry about what's happening now. And I mean, it would be great not to worry about either, but I think I do need to quit thinking about what's going to happen and instead focus on what's happening currently. So that was my video analysis of The Waking by Theodore Rothite. Um, I know this video is pretty long and not really straight to the point. I kind of have a hard time making videos and talking in front of the camera, but if you want more info on this poem and a better analysis, go look through the website because it's better, I think. Thanks for watching. Deuces.